It's an astonishing thing how much people actually want to help you. To me, it's astonishing because there's kind of like a cliche that rich people are selfish or rich people don't look out for others. But far from it. My experience of wealthy people, not all of them for sure, but way more yes than no, is that they are individuals like you and me that fought their way to a certain level of success, battled their way to a certain level of success, learned a lot of lessons along the way. And most of them, the one thing they love to do is reach down and help somebody else achieve at a high level.
Hey guys, Wally Olivieri. All right, so what is 24/7 mindset? Most times when you hear 24/7, you're thinking what? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just grinding, hustling. I learned over time a 24-year career in mortgage and multiple other businesses that I own is unfortunately, you'll get burnt out. I became an absent father, I became an absent husband, and I became a poor business leader because I was trying to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to build a business, maintain a business. When I learned how to work smarter, not just harder, by doing things the best way it could be done, instead of just simply doing my best, I learned how to work only 24 hours a week, 7 months a year, while I got paid from the business residually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can do the same. Welcome to the show. Hey guys, it's Wally Olivieri. And I wanted to, first of all, thank you so much for all the support and all the love that we've had for 24/7 Mindset. Hitting bestseller list on Amazon, bestseller list on Barnes & Noble, bestseller list on Wall Street Journal was 110%, exceeded my expectations, and I have you to thank. So thank you so much for your support. I want to introduce a guest today that has supported me, I'd say probably other than my wife, Nikki, one of the most, if not the most, people that have supported me over the last decade plus. As you've read the book and you've kind of seen the accomplishments I've had the last 10 years, it's just been rocket fuel. Well, there's a key factor and there's a key reason and there's a key person. So that key person is one and only David Osborn.
I love you like a brother. We don't have to get into the details. You're my brother from another mother. You're my big little brother, I like to call you, Wally, because you're taller than me and bigger than me, but you're my little brother in age. So
that leads me to the topic I want to talk to you about. You've opened a ton of doors for me, but you've taught me how to think differently. You've taught me how to look at things differently. My biggest question I want to ask is, obviously I know our story, but for our viewers out there, how do they find great mentors that help teach the roadmap and the path? So how do you find your mentors? How have you found your mentees over your career?
It's an astonishing thing how much people actually want to help you. To me, it's astonishing because there's kind of like a cliche that rich people are selfish or rich people don't look out for others. But far from it. My experience of wealthy people, not all of them for sure, but way more yes than no, is that they are individuals like you and me that have fought their way to a certain level of success, battled their way to a certain level of success, and learned a lot of lessons along the way. And most of them, the one thing they love to do is reach down and help somebody else achieve at a high level. I think partially it's because humans, I believe at their heart, are actually good. There's a lot of bad out there. There's a lot of bad behavior, but at their heart, they're good. And so people want to help for that reason. And secondly, because it's been a battle, they want to talk about it. Like wealthy, successful people love to share their story because they committed to it at a high level and they put a lot of effort into getting where they are. And they just love someone to show up that's curious and eager and hardworking and has questions and share what they've learned and how they got there. I think there's a selfish interest and a selfless interest that line up, that mentors are everywhere. And the best thing you can do if you want to find a mentor is find somebody in an industry that you're in that's better than you at that industry, that's sold more cars than you, taken on more loans than you, sold more houses than you, built more dental practices than you, and reach out to them and just say, hey, what would it take for me to have coffee with you or to have 5 minutes with you, or I got a couple questions, do you mind answering them? And just find 4 or 5 of those people and reach out to all 4 or 5. And I guarantee you somebody will respond. And probably I'll bet three 3 of the 5 of them will respond, especially if you're persistent in a non-annoying way, just persistent and tenacious without being annoying.
Yeah,
So
I think when I see someone of your stature and your level of success, or the other mentors I've had in my life, is, the old adage of it's the loneliest girl at the bar is usually the hottest chick at the bar. Everybody is
yeah,
so afraid of going up to her. But, I think it's, someone sees your level of success or whoever's as a mentor, and they're just so intimidated of going up to them. And it always surprises me how much of an abundance thinker the more successful or the more accomplished, wealthier people are.
yeah. Actually, I would never know what was going on with the hottest girl at the bar because I was always too afraid to go talk to her. So, but I do know that in the mentorship world and the business world, the thing about successful people is they might seem on the exterior extra tough because they usually have had to toughen themselves up to get to where they are. So they might seem unapproachable.
Yeah.
But the truth is they really do want to share their story with people that are respectful and people that are talented and trying to strive for themselves. They just don't want to waste their time with people that are clingers or hangers on or vampire energy drainers, energy suckers, which there's a lot of those out there too. So they kind of build up an armor. It's like you see a movie star and you want to go up and say, "Hey, what's going on? It's so good to see you." And you're the 5,000th person that has done that to him in the same, in the last 24 hours. Of course, they're going to be like, "Get the hell away from me," right?
Yeah.
But if you catch them in the right moment with an interviewer and they get to share their story, they always go in depth and they go to a great deal of knowledge about how they started their careers. And you got all these TV shows where they're interviewing actors and they're showing you exactly what they did. And I think successful people have that same armor up in a different way. They want to get stuff done. They want to move with speed. So they don't want to be interrupted and slowed down. But inside, there's a soft center that just would love to help other people and share other people. You've just got to find the pathway in. And the pathway in is not obnoxiousness or being a sycophant, like just lifting them up too much on a pedestal. It's just being like, "Hey, I genuinely want your help because I'm here and I'm trying to get to here. And I would really appreciate if you would give me some of your time because I think you can help me get from here to here faster. And I want to know what I can do to earn that right." If you come from that perspective, there's so many of them out there. They're all over the place. Everyone's got something to teach you, but especially if you're trying to get ahead in business, people that are ahead of you in business have a lot to offer you.
Well, if I look at your career and the viewers, obviously, I'm sure know about your success, but which we'll dig into a little bit. I think what's been so amazing is not only your bravery in business, but you've been able to reinvent yourself. When I see someone that, like in your caliber, that worked with one of the top agents around, then started doing, being top team leader and top OP and growing through the Keller Williams world, and now you've grown so much of your wealth even outside. I would assume, and you correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of that is finding someone at the next level above you and finding out what they're doing well, learning from them, then going to the next level, the next level, next level.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my favorite quotes that made it all make sense that I heard a few years ago was, "If you're not embarrassed by who you were 10 years ago, then you're not growing." It's a little sad that we as entrepreneurs have to keep changing all the time. There's not like, you can't just rely on this, like, "Oh, I've arrived. I never have to change again."
Mm.
The truth is it's continuous, never ending change. And I think that's where the fun is. It's also a little frustrating because it would be nice just to be like, "Oh, I finally made it to the top of the mountain. I'm just going to sit here in my kimono and enjoy life." The truth is there's always another mountain. There's always something else for you to learn. It's not always about money, but it's about relationship or health or something. But yeah, I mean, if I look at myself 10 years ago or 10 years before that, it's just, yeah, I'm kind of, I wouldn't say, yeah, I love who I am today more than I loved who I was 10 years ago. And I think, yeah, it's not an easy journey to realize that, but it's kind of fun. Yeah, it's fun.
Well, if you look back to 10 years ago, I that's when we met. So the David Osborn in 2013. What advice would the David Osborn in 2023 have to the younger self from 10 years ago?
I would say buy more cash flowing assets instead of doing flipper deals and trying to maximize the return on dollar, because the return on dollar on a short-term flip is higher than the return on dollar on a long-term hold. But in the long term, the holds are better. I'd have definitely told myself to load up, even though I did pretty good on all these things. So everything I'm telling you about, I already took advantage of, but I could have done better or more. load up on more of that free money they were giving away, that low interest rate, lock down as many 2.7, 3.2% loans as you can for as long as possible on assets that make sense. But I would also give myself the advice of, spend a little bit more time with your daughter, spend a little bit more time with your kids, slow down a little bit. There's nowhere you're rushing to. This has been my latest incarnation now in my 50s is there's nowhere to run to. Like my whole life I was striving to get somewhere from my 20s to my 30s to my 40s. Now in my 50s, I'm like, yeah, 70s doesn't look better than 50s. There's nowhere I'm rushing to. There's no amount of money that can buy me extra years on my life. It's really about the journey and enjoying the journey, which I've enjoyed and it's been fun. But I think when my 40s, I had a little, I don't know if the word's hysteria to it, but just like a frequency of like manic, this has to happen. I have to make this happen. I got to climb this mountain. I got to climb this ladder. Just like an excessive intensity that I think actually causes you to miss some of the moments. And I think you can show up with a steadiness and a strength and a persistence, and the mania can go away. And then, a little bit more balance would probably be my advice to myself back then.
Would you have listened?
Probably not. I mean, I might have in my 40s, but honestly, the 20s and 30s for sure, I would have not listened. I remember seeing guys in my 30s that were moving more slow and more balanced and thinking, man, you are missing the boat. I don't know why you are going to golf today when you could be working and getting an edge up. I don't know why. I specifically am thinking of someone you and I both know, and he was always doing the work, but also enjoying life. And I was like, man, I don't get it. Like you're missing out hours on every day when you could be working. So I don't know if I'd listen. There's certain things that are just hard to learn until you're actually ready to receive them.
Yeah, I think for sure, but it's great. I mean, your perspective is super spot on that your 50s look better than your 70s. Hopefully we're as close as friends as we'll stay to be when you're in your 70s, but the way your life is going and how much you focus on your health, obviously, will things hurt a little bit more in the morning when you're in your 70s? I'm sure, but I think you'll be at that next chapter of your life and you'll enjoy it differently from what you've learned in the past.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, I wouldn't have listened in my 20s and my 30s, but I might be a little bit more open to listening in my 40s and 50s. Because I think the other thing is I used to think hard work was the secret of success, and it is a big component of it. In my 20s and 30s, I relied on that a lot. But being in my 40s, I began to realize, it's about leverage. It's about positioning yourself correctly. It's about having the right people, the right relationships, the right friendships, being in the right organization. And so once I realized that in my 40s, I was like, okay, there is a little bit more for me to learn. In fact, when you met me in 2013, I just joined an organization called Tiger 21. And since I've joined other organizations where I'm just around very extraordinarily successful people from an economic point of view, and that's just upped my learning at a whole new level. And sometimes learning like not what I don't want to do, and sometimes learning things that have been really, really great that have helped me a lot in life. So I think I'm more open now to alternative ways of thinking than I ever was in my 20s and 30s.
One thing that we can talk for hours, and I think a lot of people will be really impressed by your success and your accomplishments and wealth and just how well you played at the Coencia member guest. Probably want to plug that in there for you.
I think I played fine. I still missed 2 4-foot putts. That's what I remember. I don't remember the 20-footer I made. I remember the 4-footer that I missed twice.
I remember every drive and every iron shot and gimme range that you hit on the first day. So,
that first day was pretty good. I played pretty good the first 14 holes on the first day. Yes, sir. Keep going.
For sure.
Keep going.
But the point I'm trying to make is I think, one of the most impressive accomplishments I've witnessed from our close friendship over the years, and we talked about it when we were in Cabo together last week, was how well you've done at building communities. And how well you've done with collaborating with others, and what you've done with Go Abundance and what you've done with Champions now. I admire that because that's a skill that I've not learned yet. I'm not going to say I don't have it, but I'm learning to grow there. But talk to us a little bit about, when did you realize community was much more important than anything on the success barometer?
Well, I learned mentors and peers early, like we discussed earlier. Like that was a gift from Gary Keller early on, and Mark Willis, and just these Dr. Fred Gross, and these different mentors. My mom too, and my dad. The mentors I had early in my life. I mean, a good mentor that teaches. Tony Robbins, for crying out loud, should be able to help everybody. Like a good mentor can give you a 5-year head start. You know, they can give you 5 years of information in 1 year if you're willing to receive it. And even if you're not willing to receive it, if you just keep exposing yourself to it, it will soak into you. And then community and peers, you know, I was lucky enough to meet Pat Hyben and Tim Rode, my co-founders of GoBundance, and Mike McCarthy, who's also a co-founder of GoBundance. I was able to meet them in my journey. And then that's where I learned, like, it's not just about having a Tony Robbins speak to you or Gary Keller speak to you. It's also about like a guy beside you doing the things they're learning with you. Because that's actually more influential. Because if they're doing it, you got no excuse not to do it. It's one thing to hear Tony Robbins and say, oh, that's easy for you today. You're a charismatic giant with the energy of a 5-year-old nonstop, right? But when you see a guy next to you that's not better looking than you, not smarter than you, just kind of like you, and they're like, yeah, I just made $1 million, or I just bought my 20th rental property, or I just did this. I just went to whitewater raft down the Zambezi in Africa. You're like, wait a second, I got no excuses. And for me, then the peer group became massively important in the community. The other gift I've had, Wally, and I think, you know, 2 things. One is I moved 10 times before I was 14. So moving all the time made me want to have a community of people because I was used to constantly being pulled away. But the other gift I have is, that's been real helpful to me, is I'm fairly transparent and I'm willing to be vulnerable. You know, like I do see, you know, I am willing to share with you if I'm hurting. I am willing to share with you what's working and not working. And if I share that with the right people, you know, the feedback they give me, it will move me forward. And if I share it with the wrong people, it's like throwing, you know, fire leaves into the fire. It does nothing. It just disappears. Or pearls before swine is one an analogy I like to use. But if it's the right people, they care about you and they listen, again, that vulnerability creates a possibility for you to transform faster than if when you're hurting, you wall up inside. And I think that's what we've done a really good job of in GoBundance, is creating this space for people to be successful, strong, but also transparent and vulnerable. And that's where you can get really accelerated growth, because you don't really listen as well when you're doing great. You listen much better when you're hurting. And so if people don't know you're hurting, they can't give you their pearls of wisdom. But if they know you're hurting and you share it with them, not in too much of a victim-y, whiny way, but at least just in a clear, like, here's what's going on way, then they have the opportunity to pour into that gap that you have in your game plan. And then you can tighten that gap up and recover faster.
Yeah. And I think what also, from being in the audience with you guys being on stage, the brotherhood that you guys have been able to build, we all desire that. You know, the more success you have, the more lonely you feel sometimes.
True.
And feeling that, feeling just the love that you, Pat, and the group have had for each other, and Tim, and it's been encouraging to the rest of us to feel like we can grow with that kind of bond with other people in GoBundance.
I think most successful people are lonely, and I think we want to have community. That's what we most want. And everybody wants community. And when life comes at you, because life's hard, you can either use escapes, which some people do, and they escape into drugs, or they escape into alcohol, or they escape into, you know, sports, or they escape into some kind of distraction. And then you can find a community that you build around that. Or you can escape into a safe job and family, and people will escape into that. Those of us that have chosen business success as our form of escape, we pay a certain price that you don't pay if you're just watching your favorite sports team or going home on the weekend and barbecuing with your buddies. You're paying a price, because to become successful in business, you have to pay a price, because business is the greatest place for all your falsehoods to show up as falsehoods. Because you can BS your way at a dinner party that you're successful, but you can't BS the market. And if you're not doing the right things in the marketplace, you don't succeed. So all of us in business have had our teeth kicked in a little bit. We've been hurt. We found the false parts of our body that wouldn't sustain the pressure we were trying to put it under, and had to tear that part away or reinvent that part. And so I think doing that is a lonely process, because most people aren't stupid enough to do that. I'm not even thinking it's that smart necessarily. It's just what some of us choose to do. And when you get to the other side of that, and you have rebuilt yourself, and you are a little stronger, and you're a little bit more in integrity with business and work, you're kind of lonely because not every, and then you find other guys that have done that and you're like, hey, I found my brothers. And that's, you know, kind of the nice thing we've created at Go Abundance is that brotherhood of people that have paid the price to some degree to control the dice or to be where they're at. And now they have peership and they recognize one another because of that struggle.
I think also there's a couple lessons that you've dealt. I'm sure you taught me many, but one of the two come to mind. We're actually golfing when you taught me. One was, I was stepping over $1 to pick up a penny, and
Right.
You relate that also to business, not only just golf gambling, but in business. There's so much of the ego of I made it, I, and you realize like you're working so hard to pick up that penny, when if you just take a step back and you focus on the team and the community, you're able to pick up that $1. How did you learn that lesson?
Well, I got a little lucky in that regard, Wally, in that I was a real estate agent for 3 years in Austin, Texas. And then I went up to Dallas to open franchises. My family was not wealthy. My dad was a soldier. That was all our money was from him being a colonel in the Army. My mom got into real estate and she did pretty successful. And so she and I went up together to Dallas and started opening franchises. Well, I opened 6 franchises. And when I opened the 6th franchise, now I'm in my late 20s, I had to have a manager for every one of those franchises. And at first, I tried to do it all. So I tried to be the manager and be the guy that put paper in the copy machine and, assemble the cubicles. And I just tried to do it all. But because of the scale of work, I ran out of capacity to do it all. So about 2 or 3 years into that job, I actually had an identity crisis. Like I had a breakdown because I was trying to do everything. And because, again, that moment of vulnerability, that moment of pain created an opening, I was lucky enough to be around a bunch of mentors, get a bunch of learning. And Gary Keller was learning at that time from a guy called Bain Hinian, who was teaching Recruit Select. And they said, everything in your life rises and falls on the 5 most talented people that you have near you. And I think this is true whether they work for you or don't work for you. Like if you took your 5 closest buddies or closest associates, the people you hang out with the most, that's going to determine your level of success. And so, but what this guy specifically said is you can hire 5 people. That's about the most that can report to you. And as good as those 5 are, is as good as your position in life's going to be. So I took that to heart, and I had 6 franchises. I was already having an identity crisis. I had shingles from stress. My life was really falling apart. I was under a lot of pain, and I took it to heart. And I just said, I'm going to go find a great manager. Because before then, I'd had managers, and I was really doing their job for them. Like I hired mediocre people, and then I just figured if they can just hold it together, I'll build it for them. And that was fine when I had 1 or when I had 2. But when I had 6, that no longer worked. It didn't fit the mold. So I made myself an expert. So really it was position because I had 6 franchises, vulnerability because I was in a lot of pain from my failure because I was failing. And then, like the hero's journey, the new skills, the new wisdom that came in from these mentors that were like, go find great people. So I dedicated myself to finding great managers. And I made that one of my top. I came back from that experience. I said, my number one job is to find talent. That's it. Nothing else is more important than me finding talent and putting them in a position to win. And I got some great managers back then. I scored really big with a guy called John and a guy called Gene and a lady called Holly. And I just started building this, an amazing woman called Leslie. Always reminds me of a lady I have today called Sarah, Smokey. And just so many talented people started showing up in my life once I made that my commitment. And I made my goal, to find that talent and then to build a covenant relationship with them where I did everything I could to make their lives easier and better and help them have success. Not for everyone, but for the ones that earned it, for those 5 key leaders that were just blowing my businesses up. And I think that started to happen. So once I got that lesson, it was like a positive reinforcement that never ended, that everyone in my life should be talented, whether it's the person babysitting my kids, the person as my personal assistant, who's actually probably as much as important as the guys leading your business, or the guys leading my businesses. They all have to be the best quality I can possibly find. I think a slight advantage I had was that my mom was very talented. She was a top agent. My dad was a colonel, a Green Beret, so he was tough. I was used to dealing with tough people. My older sister, very aggressive personality, and then my first business mentor was Gary Keller and Mark Willis. And so I was just surrounded by very aggressive, successful humans. So when I got this mindset of I need to find someone who's talented, I knew what to look for. And I was able to find people that were in that mold, that, what's the word everyone uses? The avatar of what it takes to be a successful person. So yeah, that's how it began.
I mean, it makes so much sense what you're saying about finding great, talented people, building that covenant with them. But I think you've also done a great job of showing them how they can build all their dreams and all their goals within the opportunity that you have in front of you.
Yeah, if you don't have a big enough economic vision, then you won't get the most talented people. So you have to have a vision that's big enough to encompass, the talent that's coming to you. So if your vision is this and their vision is that, they won't fit in your world. But if your vision is that and their vision is that, then they're in. So the circle of your vision for yourself has to be big enough for them to fit within it. And most people don't think too hard about what their big vision is. So if you're willing to do that, that became the second credo of my life, was vision. So first was talent, and then the second was just developing vision, nonstop focusing on what's the future that I could create? What's my 5-year vision? How do I break that down to annual goals? What do I have to do right now to get myself towards that 5-year vision? And then eventually I added a 25-year vision and a 40-year vision. So it became like finding top talent and then having a vision that was so compelling and so big, the top talent would want to come work for me. And I used to jokingly say, I'm going to call Warren Buffett. I'm going to offer him a job. I'm going to say, Warren, I'm going to pay you $2 billion a year, and your job is to make me $5 billion a year. Something like that. Literally, like, that's it. I don't care how you do it. Just get to work, son, so this check doesn't bounce. And so it was talent and vision, and then and then the third one became opportunities. So it kind of tied into that. I was like, okay, I realized if I'm going to have great people working for me that are showing up and performing, I mean guys that are making me 7 figures, right? I'm not talking about just, I don't want people, sometimes people hear this and they're like, oh, I'm performing, I need my next opportunity. I'm like, no, you're really not performing. You're just very good. I'm not talking about very good. Very good is not good enough to get in my sphere of attention. I need great. So if you're performing great, where I can't imagine not having you in my world, that's when I start thinking, you got to make yourself irreplaceable. And I start thinking, okay, how can I create an opportunity for this guy that they haven't even thought of that will give them the next, 5-year run for them, make them a lot of money, and also continue to build the world that we're creating together through our vision.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it reminds me of a story. I think it was like 2014. You were teaching a class. I was lucky to be in, and it was in Abundance. We're in Atlanta, and you got up in front of a whiteboard, and you taught your lesson about the 9s and hiring only 9s. And what taught that to you, and how would you kind of describe that, where the viewers can kind of learn from you about your 9s?
Yeah. So the idea is you take everyone in your organization and you give them a 1 through 10. You score them. I don't ever give 10. So technically it's a 1 through 9. So you score everyone in your organization on their talent level from a 1 through 9. So draw your org chart, write down the circles, put the initials of the people, and then give them, based on their skill set and their job, a score of 1 through 9. By the way, this is from Bain Hinian. That's where I learned it, the same guy. He's passed on now, but Gary Keller taught it as well. He learned it from Bain. So it's like 1 through 10. What would you score them? Now, the goal is to have those 5 people that report to you. You could have 10,000 people in your organization, but you probably only got 5 reporting to you, and you want those 5 to be 9s. That would be the ideal situation. Now, it's very hard to be a 9. And just to correct you a little bit, like I'll keep a 7 through a 9. Like you got to be a 7 or above. If you're a 6, we might put a lot of training in you to get you to a 7. But if you're 5 or below on that piece of paper, you're gone. Like that means we don't see any hope for you. You're below 50% of the job. You're out. But if you're a 6, we might put energy into training you to be a 7. Most people can't move much more than a point, right? So I would love to have 5 8s, by the way. Like 8s are fantastic. So what is a 7? A 7 shows up, manages your business. They do a good job. Your business grows maybe 5-10% a year. They're handling everything. They're just a very good hire. What's an 8? An 8 shows up. They kick butt. By the way, the 7, you got to help them every now and then. They call you in. They're asking you advice. You're showing up and co-building it with them, but just not too much. They mostly got a handle on it. An 8 shows up and just pushes your business forward. It might grow 20%. They're killing it, and they don't really need much help from you. In fact, often with an 8, your conversation might be, dude, when are you going to take a vacation? I can see you look really frazzled and really stressed, and I know you're pushing it and you're humping it. but let's get you on a vacation schedule. Like a lot of times with 8s and 9s, you just have to make sure they're managing their health. I've had multiple employees that I've sent on vacation or that I've hired a concierge doctor for. Like I'm like, hey, I'm going to prepay for you for 1 year, this concierge doctor, because I want you to look after your health, because I want you in relation with me for the long haul. And that also goes a long way to show that I'm thinking of them and ahead of them and how to manage that healthiness. And then the 9, so the 8, you're looking for opportunities for them. They're growing your business 20 years, 20% a year. And by the way, this is all market contingent. There are some markets you cannot grow 20%. Like right now is a tough market, but I'm talking about things are moving smoothly in the upper right trajectory. They would be growing at 20%. 9s are almost never findable, but a 9 shows up. They kick ass in the business you've given them. They open a second one. You give them another opportunity. They crush that opportunity. You open a third one. You're truly empire building through that person. So if it was a restaurant chain, you might open a Fleming's. The manager's killing it, crushing it. You open a second Fleming's. They manage both of them. They kill it and they crush it. You keep pushing them until, and then you got to coach them on how to hire their own stable of 8s and 9s and 7s. Now, coming full circle back to what you originally said, like my goal would be to deal with only 8s and 9s. So if I have a 7, I'm not disappointed. I'm not discouraged. I just put them under one of my 8s. I don't want to deal with them every day. Does that make sense? I let my 8 deal with my 7. So it's not like it's bad to be a 7. There's still good people are hard to find, period. So I'm not throwing a 7 out of my organization. I'm not discouraged with a 7. I'm willing to give a 6 a chance. I'm just not giving them my time. My time is with the 8s and the 9s.
Well, I'd say go back to that 10-year question. So if you rewind David of 2013 versus David of 2023, my gut tells me your 8s and 9s look different. As they've evolved over time, how have you grown in the value you can provide a today's 8 or 9, not just the 10 years ago 8 or 9?
Yeah, that's probably a good question. I think 2 things. I don't try as hard as I used to.
Yeah.
I don't try as hard to impress them or to create vision for them. I don't try as hard to find where they're going to win. I let them find that. So it used to be, like I said, I try to create their second opportunity, third opportunity. And the second thing I think is I do provide a structure. I'm really good at saying, okay, here's the structure where you and I coexist in. Here's your comp, your salary, your earning equity. So I built the boat, and then they just got to get in it and be the captain of that boat. Yeah. Now they're going to drive it. They're going to make it win races. They're going to steer it. We might tweak it together, add a sail, add a new engine. But ultimately, I'm much more solid than I used to be. So I used to have to sell harder on a future vision. Now I just am. I am a great place for people to flourish. I am a great place for people to show up. I know that. I think I convey that. And so now it's more a relationship of I got your back. I'm going to provide a structure. You go do what you're going to do. If it works out, great. We're big boys and we're all sharing the rewards. If it doesn't work out, so sorry, we're big boys. Go find an opportunity someplace else.
Well, I also think I was confused by you about 10 years ago when you hired your executive assistant at the time, Matt. And the story goes, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the story goes, you invite him out to your world. He's in your world and you say, hey, figure out how to make things go better. And it wasn't and I heard this story and I heard it from both sides. It was, when I hired an assistant, I've got a manual, I've got job roles, I've got time blocks, I've got goals we're trying to hit. And I think what I've learned from you is if you've got the right talent, the talent goes in there and just makes things better. It might take us some time to learn how to make things better, but they've got a desire of a servanthood just to go in there and make things better. And you don't have to give them every step of the process.
Yeah, I'm all for the manuals, and I think that's fantastic. If you can have a McDonald's and you got a manual for the short order cook and the guy that sells the fries. Yeah. I'm just not looking for employees like that around me. I'm not looking for people that need to be told what to do.
Yeah.
So what I told Matt was, he said, what am I going to do? What's my job description? I said, just look over my shoulder, see what I do, and make my life easier. And by the way, I'll try to slow down so we can go further together in the future and faster, but mainly just watch me, live with me. He'd come to all my meetings. He'd read all my emails and then figure out what you can take off of me. And and he took so much off. It's crazy. Matt has done so well. Now he leads 2 companies for us, and he's an astonishing human being. He's been so fiercely loyal. He's definitely family to me. I feel so blessed that he came into my life, and he's learned so much. He's learned a bunch. Like he was solving a problem for us the other day, and I'm like, where the hell did you learn that? And he goes, well, you did that 5 years ago in this circumstance. You remember that deal? I'm like, no, I don't remember that deal at all. But now that you mention it, I kind of remember it. And he just took so much off. And the same is true of like, if I think of most of my top guys, I'm not creating their job description. Now my 7s, sure. My 6s, sure. But my 8s and 9s, they're pretty much telling me what they're up to. They're leading in places that I probably couldn't even lead. They're better than me at what they do.
Yeah.
And my job is just to make sure that they don't break the boat or crash the boat, and make sure that we have well thought out structures into the future of how we win together. What if the relationship doesn't work out? I spend so much time on the divorce before I get married, because when you're getting married, you're hiring a new employee, everyone's happy, everyone thinks it's all going to go amazing. But guess what? Most of the time, it doesn't go exactly like you thought. And often there are moments that are not amazing. And you have to think about that ahead of time. Non-compete, non-solicits, non-disclosures, non-disparagements. How do we get out of business? Let's say I've given you 20% of my business and we have irreconcilable differences. How do we get out? What's a built-in buy-sell? What's a fair way to exit this relationship? And so I've started putting a lot of time into that and a lot less time into managing my 8s and 9s, because they're going to figure it out themselves, just like Wally, you did and I did.
Yeah.
Like, I figured it out. Yes, I got it from Gary. Yes, I got it from Tony Robbins, but I went and found all that information and pulled it into my brain, and I put it to work. And when it didn't work, I quit doing it and found something else to do. And when it did work, I pushed that button harder and harder until I figured out a better way of pushing the button. And that's really the kind of people I'm looking for. And I don't over micromanage them either. By the way, I do see, you know why a lot of guys are 8s? Because they can't hire other 8s. You know why they can't hire other 8s? Because they got to be the man. They got to be the biggest, strongest person in the room. And it's really hard to hire an 8 if you want to be the man, because the 8 wants to be the man. And one skill that I have, and I think, again, being the youngest son of a fairly aggressive family, is I'm willing to step back and let you have all the rewards, all the glory, all the responsibility, while I'm just standing up here with enough of the reins in my hands that if things go crazy, I can take back control, or I can get us out of relationship or get us out of a sticky situation if it goes bad. But in the meantime, you're running as hard as you can. You're making a bunch of money. You're getting a lot of glory. And you are the man of the business you're running. I'm not micromanaging you or squishing you with my thumbnail.
Well, I think, switching gears a little bit, people look at your last year, 10 years, and see the massive success and financial and accomplishments. I think share with us a little bit, one of the most impressive things, candidly, of my outside view looking in of your last 10 years is how much you worked on yourself. How much that you worked on your marriage? How much have you worked your time with your daughter and your son, and just candidly, really yourself? Tell us a little bit about that journey of you working on yourself.
Well, I think this is true of all of business. So if you look at your success right now, everything that's manifested in your life is a product of who you are. You deserve everything you get, and you deserve all the good and probably all the bad. Yes, there are ups and downs. Yes, there are unexpected things that happen. But ultimately, your life is a byproduct of the person you have become. So this is a beautiful awareness. Once you get this awareness, because I used to hold my hand just above my head. Like, you guys can see it on the video, but I can't see it now. It's out of my peripheral vision. And I knew that to get to this place, which is my next level, I don't know the information yet. I have to get it. Once I get it, now I can see my hand. Okay, I figured that out. But now to get to the next level, it's outside of my field of vision. And I have to go find that information from mentors, books, teachers, classes, seminars, peers. And that's how I'll get to the next level of success. So that's business success. And I learned that early. I was like, oh my gosh, my life's amazing. And yet to get it more amazing, I got to figure out a new thing. And I would keep that flywheel going, sharpening the saw and learning all the time. Well, about 10 years ago, I began to realize that same was true in my relationship with my wife and my kids, and my relationship to myself, and the relationship to my health. And so what's great about being a businessman is you learn a lot of accountability, and you learn a lot of discipline. I guess discipline's the right word, because I used to, as a kid, I remember I procrastinated, I put stuff off, I wasn't focused, I didn't get stuff done. And now I'm so focused and so capable of getting done what I want to get done that I forget what it was like to be a kid when I didn't have that focus. So, but the great thing about having that focus and that discipline and the ability to get things done is you can apply it to almost any venue. You could apply it to learning how to play the piano or making a better version of yourself or being a better father. So I just take that same intensity that I developed around work and I started applying it to, my own journey as a man, as a human being, and trying to figure out, who I am, why I got here, why I'm the man I am. Yeah, from all of that, I just finally figured out some things that I've used to change myself. And the number one thing is just presence with my kids, being present with my daughter and my son. And, I think I'm better dad with each child as they go along because I'm spending more time with them. And the same is true of my wife, just developing listening skills, developing how to manage conflict skills, develop how to recover. Not the breakdowns are going to happen, but how do you recover from the breakdowns? And then for me personally, just a little bit more time of, listening to myself instead of just pushing myself as hard as I can and being at the edge all the time and kind of coming back to center and slowing things down and enjoying life on a deeper, more meaningful level.
Well, I feel it's, I remember I was at your house like 6 months or so ago and you talked about that, you're thinking about going a world tour trip and travel around the world and knowing that now you've put that together and you guys are about to go traveling for next 5 to 6 months or whatever it is, and it's pretty awesome to see that you've slowed down to enjoy your life.
Thanks, man. I've still got a lot of work to do, so I'm still going to be engaged with work, but yes, we're very committed to that. We're all very excited to go to Japan for the next couple months, and then we're going to have to reset. There's a lot going on in the world with all these commission lawsuits, Wally, you might have noticed. But yeah, for sure. Just making memories, spending time, and getting the most out of life. And getting the most out of life doesn't always mean just an extra couple bucks or an extra business that you've created. It might just mean walking on the beach with your wife and kids and holding hands.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're super busy. On a fun note, do you play golf this morning?
I did yesterday morning, I believe. Yeah, yesterday morning.
I mean, a full day without golf. You okay?
I know. No. It's been a little slower since we got back from Cabo. There's been a lot of work all of a sudden. So yeah. How about you? Did you play this morning?
No, I've not picked up a club since Cabo. So I probably won't for a while.
Well, it's such a great friendship we have, and I'm so proud of you for all you've accomplished. I'm proud of you for the 24/7 mindset. I'm proud of you for, you're just a great man. I know how much you care, how hard you work, how much you look to grow and be a better man. And it's great to call you a friend. You're my big little brother. It's good to see you, man.
All right, bud. I love you, and I appreciate you. And we'll see you soon, okay?
All right, brother. Love you. See you soon. Bye-bye.
So thank you so much for listening today. It means a lot you took time out of your day. I don't take that lightly. Understand very clearly that you're very busy. With that being said, if you want to continue your journey and learn more about 24/7 mindset, if you're on Facebook, which I'm going to guess you are, then go to 24/7 mindset on Facebook and join the private community. I do coaching tips on there on a daily basis, go from scripts on there to systems on there, models, and the ability to be able to grow and scale a business while you have a quality of life. Hope to see you there.